With each enemy ship that fell and each alien soldier that retreated, the soldiers felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were not just survivors, they were warriors fighting for their home. The tide had turned and victory was within reach. The battle was far from over, but for the first time they felt that they could win. The ancient tank roared through the battlefield, leading the charge as humanity stood strong against the alien threat. Together they would fight until the end. The sun began to set over the battlefield, casting a warm glow across the wreckage of alien ships and debris. The sounds of gunfire had faded, replaced by the cheers of victorious soldiers. Inside the ancient tank, Sergeant Mike sat back in his seat, feeling a rush of relief wash over him. They had done it. Against all odds, they had defeated the alien army. "Did you see that last shot?" Private Jenna exclaimed, her face lit up with excitement. "We took out their command ship and sent the rest running." The joy in her voice was infectious, and Mike couldn't help but smile. The fear and doubt that had gripped them just hours before were gone, replaced by a sense of pride and accomplishment. David, still catching his breath, added, "I can't believe we actually won. I thought for sure we were done for when they started coming at us from all sides." He looked around at his fellow soldiers, their faces beaming with pride. They had faced overwhelming odds, but they had stood together. And now they were victorious. As the team celebrated, Mike reflected on the battle they had fought. It had not just been a fight for survival, it had been a fight for humanity's future. They had shown the aliens that Earth was not an easy target. With the ancient tank leading the charge, they had proved that they could defend their home against any threat. Suddenly, the tank's communication system crackled to life. "Attention all units! This is Commander Harris. We have successfully repelled the alien invasion. I repeat, we have won!" The news spread like wildfire among the troops. Cheers erupted from every corner of the battlefield. They had not only survived, they had triumphed. Mike felt a wave of emotion wash over him. This victory meant more than just defeating the aliens. It was a turning point for humanity. They had faced their fears and come out stronger. "We did this together," he reminded his team, looking each of them in the eye. "Let's remember that. It was our teamwork and courage that made the difference." As the soldiers began to clean up the battlefield, Mike and his team climbed out of the tank. The air was filled with the sounds of celebration, and the sight before them was surreal. The alien ships lay in ruins, remnants of their once mighty fleet. Mike felt a sense of closure. The threat had been neutralized, but it was more than that. It was a new beginning. In the days that followed, the world watched as the soldiers returned home as heroes. News of their victory spread across the globe, inspiring people everywhere. They were not just soldiers, they were symbols of hope, showing everyone that humanity could overcome even the darkest challenges. But for Mike and his team, the journey was far from over. They knew they needed to prepare for what might come next. While the aliens had retreated, there was no guarantee they wouldn't return. Mike gathered his team, knowing they had to plan for the future. "We need to learn from this battle," he said, looking at Jenna and David. "We were lucky this time, but we need to be ready for anything. Let's train harder and strengthen our defenses." The others nodded, the spark of determination igniting within them again. They would not let their guard down. As they trained and prepared, they also took time to enjoy their newfound status as heroes. Schools held assemblies in their honor, and people lined the streets to cheer for them. Children looked up to them, asking questions about the tank and the battle. Mike felt proud, knowing that their fight had inspired the next generation. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mike stood outside watching the stars emerge in the night sky. He thought about the future, the challenges and the possibilities that lay ahead. The victory over the aliens had shown them that they were capable of great things, and he believed there was nothing they couldn't achieve together. As Mike reflected, he felt a sense of hope. The ancient tank had become a symbol of resilience, and it had led them to victory. But it was the bonds they formed that truly mattered. They were a team, a family, ready to face whatever came next. With the memories of the battle fresh in his mind, Mike turned to walk back inside. The fight was won, but the journey was just beginning. Together, they would build a brighter future for Earth, one filled with promise, unity, and strength. They were warriors, defenders of their home, and they were ready for whatever lay ahead. Deep within a dusty storage facility, hidden under years of neglect, lay an ancient tank. The military base was quiet, with only the sound of distant machinery echoing through the halls. Soldiers often walked past the forgotten relic, thinking it was just an old piece of junk. Little did they know that this tank held a secret, a power long lost to time. One bright morning, a small team of soldiers was assigned to clean out the storage room. The leader, Sergeant Mike, was a brave and determined man. As he and his team moved boxes and old equipment, they stumbled upon the tank, its armor dull and covered in dust. "What is this?" asked Private Jenna, squinting at the machine. Sergeant Mike approached the tank, brushing away the dirt. "It looks like an old war machine," he said, a spark of curiosity lighting up his eyes. "But it seems different from the others." The tank was much larger than any they had seen before, with unusual designs etched into its metal surface. They could feel a sense of history surrounding it, as if it had many stories to tell. "Let's see if we can get it running," Mike suggested. The team gathered tools and set to work, their excitement growing with every minute. They pried open the hatch and climbed inside. The interior was cramped and dark, filled with buttons and levers that had not been touched for years. Jenna ran her fingers over the controls, feeling a strange energy coursing through the machine. After several hours of tinkering and repairs, they connected the final wires and powered up the tank. With a loud roar, the engine came to life, shaking the ground beneath them. The soldiers cheered, their voices echoing in the small space. "It works!" shouted Private David, his face beaming with joy. Suddenly, a warning light flashed on the dashboard. The tank's old systems began to activate, displaying strange symbols and diagrams. Mike felt a mix of fear and awe. "What does it mean?" he wondered aloud. As they studied the screens, a voice echoed through the cabin. "System ready. Initiating boot sequence." The soldiers exchanged glances, their excitement turning to disbelief. "This tank can talk?" Jenna asked, wide-eyed. The voice explained the tank's capabilities, advanced targeting systems, powerful weaponry, and even a protective shield. It was clear this was not just any ordinary tank, it was a fortress on wheels. As they marveled at the technology, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the base. The base commander's voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention! We have detected an incoming alien fleet. Prepare for invasion!" The news sent a chill down their spines. The soldiers looked at each other, their hearts racing. Mike felt a surge of determination. "We have to get this tank ready. It may be our only chance." The team scrambled into action, quickly checking the systems and loading ammunition. They knew they had to defend Earth from this unexpected threat. Meanwhile, the alien fleet was approaching, their ships darkening the sky like a swarm of locusts. The aliens believed they could easily conquer Earth, but they had no idea about the power hidden within the ancient tank. As the soldiers worked tirelessly, they could hear the distant rumble of engines and the sounds of chaos outside. With the tank fully operational, Mike gathered his team. "We can't let the aliens take our home. We have this giant on our side. Let's show them what we can do." The soldiers nodded, their spirits lifted. They climbed into the tank, ready for battle. As they drove out of the storage facility, the tank's powerful engine roared like a lion. The soldiers felt a sense of pride and fear mixed together. They were about to face an enemy unlike any they had ever seen, but with the ancient tank at their disposal, they felt a flicker of hope. The ground shook as they rolled onto the battlefield. Bright lights from the alien ships lit up the night sky. The soldiers were determined to fight back, and the tank was ready to unleash its power. Little did they know, the fate of Earth rested in their hands, and the awakening of this giant was just the beginning of their incredible journey. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the military base. The air was tense as the soldiers gathered around the ancient tank, now fully operational. Sergeant Mike stood at the front, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. "Today we defend our home," he said, his voice steady. "This tank is our best chance. Let's make it count." As they climbed inside, the cockpit glowed with lights and screens. The voice of the tank's AI greeted them. "Systems are fully operational. Armament ready. Defensive shields activated." The soldiers felt a rush of confidence. They were ready to face the alien invaders, but they had no idea what awaited them. From a distance, dark shapes filled the sky. The alien ships were arriving. Each one was massive, gleaming with an otherworldly design. The soldiers watched as the ships descended, their engines roaring like thunder. Mike felt a knot in his stomach, but he reminded himself that they had the power of the ancient tank on their side. "Here they come!" shouted Private Jenna, pointing at the ships. The tank's sensors beeped and displayed the approaching targets. Target acquired, the AI announced. Mike's grip tightened on the controls. Prepare to fire! With a booming sound, the tank's cannon shot a bright energy blast toward the closest alien ship. The beam hit its target, causing an explosion that lit up the night sky. The soldiers cheered as they watched the ship spiral out of control. "We did it!" David shouted, grinning from ear to ear. But the victory was short-lived. The remaining alien ships quickly regrouped, firing back at the tank. Bright beams of light shot through the air, narrowly missing them. Mike shouted, "Stay focused! We need to move!" He pressed the throttle, and the tank roared forward, dodging enemy fire as they advanced into the fray. The ground shook with each blast, and debris flew everywhere. The aliens began to land troops on the ground, their dark figures pouring out of the ships like shadows. The soldiers felt the weight of fear creeping back, but Mike rallied them. "Remember, we have the giant! Let's show them what it can do!" The tank turned, aiming its turret at the incoming alien soldiers. With a swift motion, Mike fired again. The cannon unleashed a wave of energy that swept across the battlefield, knocking back the aliens. They screamed in shock as they were thrown to the ground. The tank rolled forward, crushing fallen debris and enemy soldiers alike. As the battle raged on, the soldiers felt a rush of adrenaline. They were fighting not just for survival, but for their planet. The ancient tank, once a forgotten relic, had become their greatest weapon. With every blast, they felt stronger, more united. However, the alien commander was not one to back down easily. He ordered his forces to regroup and launch a counterattack. More ships descended from the sky, each one brimming with troops and heavy weaponry. The aliens aimed their weapons at the tank, creating a wall of fire. The ground shook as explosions rocked the area. "Hold steady!" Mike shouted, sweat dripping down his forehead. The tank's shields flickered under the pressure but held strong. "We can't give up now!" He pressed a button, activating the tank's defensive systems. Energy shields flared to life, absorbing the incoming fire. The soldiers watched in awe as the alien blasts bounced off harmlessly. Just then, Jenna noticed something on her screen. "Sir, there's a weak point in their formation," she yelled. "If we hit that spot, we can break through." Mike nodded, determination sparking in his eyes. "Let's do it!" The tank pivoted, aiming its cannon at the weak point. With a deep breath, Mike pulled the trigger. The shot soared through the air and struck the alien ships directly. In a flash, they exploded, sending debris flying in all directions. The aliens were thrown into chaos, their ranks breaking apart. The soldiers inside the tank cheered as they saw the enemy faltering. "We can win this!" David shouted, his voice full of excitement. With the aliens disoriented, Mike seized the moment. "Now's our chance! Let's push forward!" The tank surged ahead, breaking through the alien defenses. The soldiers felt a sense of triumph as they charged into the heart of the battle. The first battle had begun, and against all odds, the ancient tank was leading the charge. Earth's defenders were not just surviving, they were fighting back with all their might. The war was far from over, but the spirit of humanity shone brightly as they stood united against the alien threat. The sun was high in the sky, casting an eerie light over the battlefield. Smoke rose from the wreckage of fallen alien ships, and the air was thick with tension. Inside the ancient tank, the soldiers celebrated their victory from the first battle, but a sense of unease hung over them like a storm cloud. Sergeant Mike sat in the commander's seat, gripping the controls tightly. He felt a mix of pride and fear. They had won, but the alien commander would not stay quiet for long. He knew the enemy would strike back, and they had to be ready. "Did you see that?" Private Jenna said, her eyes wide with excitement. "We took out a whole squad of aliens with just one shot. I can't believe it." But as her voice echoed in the tank, Mike noticed a hint of doubt in her expression. The victory was sweet, but the reality of war was harsh. Just then, Private David interrupted their celebration. "What if the next wave is even stronger? What if we can't hold them off?" His voice was shaky, and the other soldiers exchanged worried glances. The mood in the tank shifted. What if they were not ready for what was coming? Mike felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He turned to his team, trying to project confidence. "Listen up, everyone. We have faced tough challenges before, and we have come through. This tank is not just a machine, it is a symbol of our strength. Together we can face anything." But doubt lingered in the back of their minds. The soldiers had seen the aliens regrouping, their numbers swelling as more ships arrived. The thought of a larger, more organized attack made them uneasy. They were not just fighting for their lives, they were fighting for the future of Earth. As the hours passed, the soldiers prepared for the next battle. They checked weapons, recalibrated systems, and refueled the tank. But each creak and groan of the tank reminded them of its age. It was ancient, and they wondered how long it would hold up against advanced alien technology. The atmosphere inside the tank grew tense. "What if we fail?" David said softly, breaking the silence. "What if we're not strong enough?" His voice was filled with uncertainty, and the others nodded, sharing his fears. The thought of defeat loomed large, casting a shadow over their spirits. Mike took a deep breath. "We can't think like that," he replied firmly. "We have each other and we have this tank. We need to trust in our training and in one another. Doubt will only slow us down." He felt a flicker of hope as he spoke, but he also felt the doubt creeping into his own heart. Suddenly, the tank's sensors beeped loudly, pulling them back to the present. "Incoming alien ships detected," the AI announced. The soldiers snapped to attention, adrenaline rushing through their veins. Mike's heart raced. It was time to put their fears aside and face the enemy. "Prepare for battle!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the tension. The soldiers quickly took their positions, each one focusing on their tasks. Jenna adjusted the targeting systems, her fingers moving swiftly over the controls. David loaded the cannon, his hands steady despite the fear in his heart. As the alien ships descended, Mike felt a surge of determination. "We've trained for this." "We can do it!" he shouted, trying to rally his team. They could see the alien ships flying in formation, ready to attack. The aliens had come with reinforcements, and their numbers were overwhelming. The first wave of alien fire rained down on them. The tank shook as blasts hit the shields, but they held firm. "Fire!" Mike commanded, and the cannon roared to life. The energy beam shot through the air, striking an alien ship directly. It exploded in a brilliant flash, and the soldiers cheered, momentarily forgetting their fears. But then, more alien ships appeared, and the onslaught intensified. The tank rocked back and forth as the blasts continued. The soldiers inside felt the strain of their situation, and doubts crept back in. Could they really win this battle? Could the tank withstand the storm of alien fire? With each explosion, the soldiers' confidence wavered. They fought hard, but the pressure was mounting. "We can't keep this up!" David shouted, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "What if we lose everything?" Just then, Mike glanced at his team. He saw their faces, filled with fear but also determination. They were scared, but they were also ready to fight. "We fight together!" he yelled, his voice booming over the noise. "We are stronger than our doubts. We are soldiers, and we will protect our home." The words ignited a spark within them. The soldiers nodded, renewed with determination. They pushed their doubts aside and focused on the battle. They had faced uncertainty before, but they were not alone. Together they could conquer their fears and fight for Earth. With renewed courage, they braced themselves for the battle ahead. Doubts still lingered, but the strength of their bond began to shine through the darkness. The first battle had shown them their power, and now they would prove that even in the face of doubt, they could emerge victorious. The sky was filled with chaos as the alien ships descended in waves. The sounds of explosions echoed around the battlefield, drowning out the soldiers' fears. Inside the ancient tank, Sergeant Mike took a deep breath, focusing on the task at hand. They had to turn the tide of this battle before it was too late. "Brace for impact!" he shouted as another round of alien fire rained down. The tank shook violently, and the soldiers inside gripped their seats. The defensive shields flickered but held strong. "We can do this! Let's show them what we're made of." Mike's voice cut through the noise, fueling their determination. Private Jenna adjusted the targeting system, her hands moving swiftly. "There are too many of them," she yelled over the sounds of the battle. "We need a plan!" Her face was tense, and Mike could see the worry in her eyes. But he knew they had to keep fighting, even when the odds seemed stacked against them. "We need to hit their command ship," Mike said, pointing to a massive alien vessel hovering above the battlefield. "If we can take that down, we might disrupt their entire operation." He could feel a surge of hope as he spoke. It was risky, but it could be their only chance. "Let's do it," David replied, determination shining in his eyes. "We can't let them win!" The team rallied around the idea, and Mike felt their spirits lift. This was their moment to turn the tide. With renewed energy, the tank rolled forward, weaving between enemy fire. Mike skillfully maneuvered the ancient vehicle, dodging blasts and debris. The alien ships loomed closer, their weapons charged and ready. Jenna locked onto the command ship, and the targeting system beeped steadily. "Locking on target!" she shouted, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Prepare to fire! Now!" Mike yelled, gripping the controls tightly. The tank's cannon roared to life, unleashing a brilliant energy beam that shot through the air. Time seemed to slow as they watched the blast travel toward the command ship. The beam struck true, hitting the vessel squarely in the side. The explosion lit up the sky, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Alien ships nearby were caught in the blast, spiraling out of control. The soldiers inside the tank erupted in cheers, their spirits lifted by the sudden turn of events.
"We did it!"
Jenna exclaimed, her eyes wide with disbelief. But the victory was short-lived. The alien commander, furious at the loss, ordered a full-scale attack on the tank. The remaining ships quickly regrouped, their cannons aimed at the ancient vehicle. "They're coming for us!" David shouted, panic creeping back into his voice. "Hold steady!" Mike commanded, focusing on the screens in front of him. "We can't let them intimidate us. Keep firing!" He could see the enemy ships lining up, ready to strike. But this time they were prepared. The tank's defensive systems activated, shields flaring brightly as blasts hit them. The ancient machine shook, but it stood firm against the onslaught. "Fire again!" Mike shouted, and Jenna unleashed another shot. The cannon fired, and the energy beam tore through the ranks of alien ships, causing chaos among their formation. "Keep it up!" Mike encouraged, feeling the adrenaline surge through him. They were gaining ground, but the enemy was relentless. Alien troops began to land around them, their dark figures advancing with weapons drawn. The soldiers inside the tank prepared for close combat, knowing they needed to defend their position. Suddenly, David spotted a group of alien soldiers flanking them. "They're coming from the side!" he shouted. "We need to take them out before they reach us." The urgency in his voice rang clear. Mike quickly turned the tank, aiming the cannon at the approaching aliens. "Fire!" he commanded. The cannon discharged, and the blast struck the ground, sending debris flying into the air. The alien soldiers were thrown back, some falling to the ground. Mike felt a surge of confidence as he watched the aliens struggle to regroup. "Look! They're breaking!" Jenna shouted, pointing at the alien ranks. The chaos of their earlier victory had sparked confusion among the enemy. Many of the alien ships were retreating, and those on the ground were scattering. The tide was truly turning. "Now's our chance!" Mike shouted, feeling the thrill of hope. "Let's push forward and finish this!" He pressed the throttle, and the tank surged ahead, the soldiers cheering inside. They were no longer just defending, they were attacking, reclaiming their territory. As the tank rolled through the battlefield, Mike felt the weight of doubt lift from his shoulders. They were fighting together, united by their determination to protect Earth. The ancient tank was not just a relic, it was a beacon of hope, a symbol of humanity's strength. With renewed determination, Mike knew they would always be prepared to protect the future of humanity.